All right, I think we're live. We're having some little issues here because we only have a little screen, so we don't. Good morning, Al.
Good morning.
For some reason or another, I can't get the screen to go bigger. Can you see me like as if it's on a big screen? Can you turn this sound up a little bit, please?
You're fine, Rosemary. See? Okay,
all right. We were in a little box. And you can see we have a guest on our show today. I'm clicking off you, Al, just for a minute. I'm clicking on to me for some reason. I don't know if that makes any difference. Can you see Al on there? You can't see him, right?
No.
Okay, so first and foremost, we say good morning to Gregor, who is standing, as always, by my side, just behind me. Then we have another guest, surprise visit from... Would you like to introduce yourself, Jeff?
Hi, folks. My name's Jeff. I'm visiting down here with Rosemary from Maine.
And then we have Carolyn, of course, to my far left. She has a cold, so we're desperately trying to keep away from her. And you know, sort of spraying stuff. We'll be spraying all sorts of antibiotics, and of course we have our darling Al. Good morning, Al.
Good morning, everyone.
Al, can you hear me okay?
I can, yep.
Great, we can hear you perfectly. So we're going to, what are we going to do this morning? I don't even know what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking to Jeff. I met Jeff, quite a while ago. How many years have I known you?
14 years.
14 years I've known Jeff and Andrea, his lovely wife. If you go to YouTube, you can see me with Andrea and Jeff. We did an amazing interview. I like to think it was an amazing interview with Andrea and Jeff, talking about one of their sons who passed in very traumatic circumstances. And they came from Maine. You live in Maine, right?
Sure do.
And they came from Maine to visit me in Vermont. And you know what it's like when you've got gum on your shoe and you try and shake it, you just can't shake it off. So we've become great friends, and I've done a few workshops in Maine thanks to Andrea and Jeff. And also they gave me a clam bake?
Lobster bake.
A lobster bake, sorry. I went for the first and last time. I've never had one since.
Well, we need to do it here.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it in Florida on the beach.
Sure.
How are we going to carry that great big giant thing onto the beach?
Get some helpers.
Okay, then. Right. All right, you're on. So Jeff did introduce me to a lobster bake, which I'd never had before, but apparently they do a lot in Maine, right? Is it a big thing in Maine?
Big summer event.
Big summer event. And they have this enormous pan, which takes at least 4 to 6 strong men to carry. And that's when it's empty. And then they throw all this good stuff in. What do you put in there? Aside from lobsters.
Seaweed.
Seaweed?
Potatoes, onions.
You didn't tell me there was seaweed in there.
Sausage, onions.
Sounds revolting. It sounds revolting. Tastes really good, right?
It is.
But
it's primitive food.
And when you look at it all, and you cook it on the beach over stones, right? Over hot stones. Is that how you do it?
Hot coals.
Hot coals. And so and you look at it, and it's all sort of this steaming mess. And then somebody says, "Do you want some of this?" And you really don't want it. But you can see the lobsters poddling about it. Not that they're live anymore, but you can see the lobsters sort of floating in there. And I personally love lobster. So you risk it for the lobster. And then everything else tastes so good. Carolyn, have you had a lobster bake?
I don't eat seafood, but I am from New Hampshire, so I'm very familiar with all
right.
of that.
So, okay. So there we are then. So I never had one before. We did some sort of a workshop and there it was. And you did it for me, which was very nice. Also, there were lots of other people. It wasn't just me you did it for, was it? I like to think it was me you did it for, but it really wasn't. It was a whole crowd.
It was because of Rosemary's visit and her gift that she shared with all of us, and all the people that were around were helping out with that event.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. All right, so we'll talk to Jeff in a few minutes. Al, shall we start with you and a question from you, my darling? We've got lots of questions here, so the sooner we get going, I think the better. But Al, do you know Jeff? Did you ever meet Jeff?
I did, yes. In, I think, Vermont a couple times.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Hello, Al.
How are you?
Healthy and happy.
Something nice conversation between. Can you get me a question? Do you mind?
Yeah, I'll get you a question.
We've
Yeah,
got all these people waiting here.
Okay, let me get you a question here.
Okay.
Let's see. Do we have questions? Yeah, let's see.
You know, quicker would be better. Your sister was better than this. Come on, get on with it.
There are no questions yet, but
Okay, all right. Carolyn's got a question.
okay,
then.
good.
Okay, good. Brother Nate says,
Good morning, brother Nate.
since I was a teenager, I don't go to funerals.
Nor me.
Because deceased tried to take over my body.
Oh,
My head and heart ache and throb, and I sweat profusely, forcing me to leave and go outside. Can you say anything about this?
yeah. I think I'm not sure that the deceased, as you put it, are trying to take over your body. I think actually it's more a question, Nate, of you being extremely sensitive, very, very sensitive to other people's energy, very sensitive to the energy of the person who has passed, and so you're connecting and you're tuning into that energy, whether or not you want to. And you know, the price of sensitivity. The most beautiful people that I know are the most sensitive, and so don't stop being sensitive. But there is a way, if you can learn to control this sensitivity, you can learn to actually, you know, deal with it in a positive way. When you allow that sensitivity to crowd in on you and to take you over, that's when it becomes a negative as opposed to a positive. Moving yourself away or removing yourself from, you know, that sort of energy is probably a good way to deal with it. But if you can simply accept that you are a very sensitive person and obviously tuning into what is going on, to the grief, the overwhelming grief sometimes that occurs during funerals, and because you're sensitive, you're absorbing all of this energy, not just from those who have passed, but also from those, you know, who are at the funeral, who are still living, but who are very much grieving. I don't know where you live. You need to find a good teacher who can help you to channel that sensitivity in a much more positive way. That's what I would suggest that you do. Al, did you find a question?
Yeah, we have a question from Carrie. She's just asking for prayers for her today. She says she has a dear member, a family member, dealing with addiction, and she's not sure what to do anymore.
All right. Well, we already mentioned someone in our healing prayers on Facebook who has a similar, or I don't know what the addiction is that Carrie's friend has. Good morning to you, by the way. Addiction is very tough. The person who has the addiction has to be the one to decide whether or not they want to do something about it, because you can bend over backwards to help. You can do as much as you can do. You can live your entire life trying to help someone with addiction. As I always say, you can stand on your head and whistle Dixie, and it won't make any difference whatsoever what you do, unless the person who has the addiction is prepared to work on it themselves and truly wants to do this, not for anybody else's sake, but for their own. Jeff, do you want to say anything about that?
I just remember hearing years ago from a friend, when you're ready, the person willing to help can't say anything wrong. And if you're not ready, they can't say anything right.
Oh, that's really good.
And it's a very meaningful statement.
Can you say that again?
when you're ready, the person that wants to help can't say anything wrong. And if you're not ready, the person can't say anything right.
That's a really good way to judge then,
That
whether
is.
or not you're ready. That's brilliant. I never heard that before.
No, me
Oh,
neither.
you see, he's already earned his spot on the sofa.
I'll have to adjust my hat.
He said to me yesterday, should I wear makeup? No, no. And don't forget to wear your hat, because I never see him without it. So yeah, that's really good. Carolyn, what about our next question? Why don't you give us a question here?
Okay, Angie.
Who?
Angie.
Angie. Good morning, Angie. She has a cold. We can't. It's not Angie.
I know, I sound terrible. I feel like my beliefs are changing and evolving so fast right now, like a spiritual awakening. Is there anything that you wrote in any of your earlier books that have changed in more recent years?
I'm sorry. Can you do that again? Just hold on a minute, because I've got for some reason or another, my iPhone just clicked off, and Al is trying to get me a message. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going with it. You see, this is what happens. I keep telling everybody it is live, just so you know. All right. So
Okay, so Angie feels like her beliefs are changing and evolving very fast right now, like a spiritual awakening. Is there anything that you wrote, Rosemary, in any of your earlier books that have changed in more recent years?
yes, I mean, what's the name of this?
Angie.
Angie? Yes, Angie. Here's the truth of it. We're all learning and growing all the time, especially those of us who are open and willing to learn and willing to listen and willing to know more and more. We're all, we're learning something new every day, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. However, I have learned a couple of things. I won't say, I don't know, since I've been doing this for so long, but one of the things that was completely overturned for me was I always believed, going to church, being a follower of Christ, totally believing in all of this stuff. I mean, I always, believed that there was a little bit of God in every one of us, always believed it, and would say so and expound on it. And that was my complete, absolute belief. Absolute belief. I didn't believe that anyone was truly evil. I always felt that there would be some way of redemption, let's put it that way. And that idea, which was a huge idea for me, was completely overturned when I learned about soul signs, and I learned about dark souls, and I learned about the fact that there is, a dark side to this universe as well as a light side. And it makes perfect sense, because everything needs to be in balance. So where there is dark, there should be light, etc., and so on. So that totally overturned me, and I had to really rethink a lot of the stuff that I'd written and a lot of the stuff that I used to believe about, the fact that we're all of God. Every one of us is of God. Because I believe now, knowing more, and if you read soul signs, you will understand that I don't believe that we are all of God. Thank goodness that the people who are not of God seem to be very much in the minority. But just the very idea that there are people who actually come to this earth for the same reason that we of the light do. They come to learn, they come to grow, they come to understand more, they come to want to know more about the light and what that means to us. There are those who come to earth for the entire opposite reason, which is they come to learn, they come to grow, they come to learn more about the dark side. They want to know more about how much darker they can become, as opposed to those of us who want to know how much more light we become. Just remember, though, I don't want to make anybody nervous here. Just remember, I'm going to give you this little analogy. If anybody's getting worried about the dark souls that do exist on this earth, and we do know this. I'm not telling you anything we don't know. The news is, tells us all of this. Okay, so you've got two rooms and one room is filled with sunshine and one room is filled with darkness, okay? When you open the door, which stands between the two rooms, what happens? Does dark engulf light or does light engulf dark? And we know that light engulfs dark. So light always has the power. And as long as we stay light and bright within us, and as long as our belief in God and in Christ and the way we think and the way we truly feel is all about the light and love and loving, then the light always wins. Always overwhelms the dark. Can always overwhelm the dark. Want to say anything about that, anybody? Okay. Jeff, I think you have a question.
Yeah, I had a question of when you're visiting with someone and their family or friends or whoever's on the other side comes through, they have an image immediately of what they're looking for, what they're hoping to see physically, I guess.
Do they?
I don't know. I did.
Okay.
And
so you got an image in your mind when you came to see me of
when you asked who we wanted to see.
Right.
That question led me to think of my son's image, my dad, my mom, Andrea's folks.
So this is the image in your head,
in
then,
my mind, in my mind's eye.
Okay.
And I just was curious what image manifests for you when they come up, when they come through, when they do show up.
None. Surprised
Okay.
you didn't it?
Okay.
Well, I don't see them. I don't know them, first of all. Usually
Sure.
I don't know them, so I have no way of imagining or remembering who they were or what they looked like. What I see is somebody standing in front of me. You know, it's like you're expecting people for dinner. You might know the wife, but you don't know the husband. Do you have the image of the husband in your head? You know what you're expecting. The door opens and there he is. And that's how it is for me. The door opens and there they are. So I don't see the image in my head. I'm not dealing with something that's in my head. I'm dealing with someone who actually comes through a door, knocks on the door, comes through the door and says hi to me in the same way that someone would come and say, come for dinner.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
I don't have any experience with it, but it does make sense.
Okay. All right. Carolyn, I know we have some other questions here. I don't know if Al's having a problem here because he sent me a little text.
I am back.
Oh, you're back?
Yeah.
We didn't miss you. I'd like to say we did, but I
Thank you,
didn't know
Rosemary.
you were gone, darling.
The tech crew fixed it.
Oh, okay. Was there a technical problem?
There was.
Oh, that's not like you, Al. You're so techno, whatever that is. I'm not even sure that's the right time, but right. Anyway, I know we have another question.
Adrian.
Good morning, Adrian.
Rosemary, can you talk about embryos? I went through IVF and had extra embryos left over and had to get rid of them. It breaks my heart and I feel horrible. Do they have souls? Are they in heaven?
Are we talking about embryos in a little glass dish? I'm asking Grey Eagle here because I don't actually know if I really know the answer to this. So I'm asking Grey Eagle this, and so you see, we all learn something every day. Just as I said before, we all learn something that might topple what we thought we knew before. I do not believe that these embryos have souls. I think they're of the flesh. If they had, I think I'm going on what Grey Eagle is telling me, if they had souls, if they were meant to exist, they would, even if only for a brief moment in time, have breathed within your womb. Don't know if that makes any sense there. You may have carried them maybe a week or 2 weeks or something like that, because sometimes a soul wants to just experience what it's like to be in the womb for however long they stay there, and then that's all they need from us. That's all they need to, you know, for them to have some kind of growth. Interesting. It's a big subject, this. Maybe one day we'll go into it much more in much more depth. But I think, darling, you can rest easy, because I feel that the embryo, the thing that's in the glass dish, was never meant to be and never inclined to be, and is simply just, of our flesh and not of our soul, not of our spirit, I should say, and certainly not from any spiritual being ready to be birthed or born, because otherwise that would have happened. That sort of leaves it wide open for so many more questions, right? There's so many more questions on that subject, but for now we're going to move on. I know that last week, and Christina, if you remember, Al's sister Christina was with us last week because Al couldn't make it. And so I know that Christina really wanted to ask this question, and I think it was from Bobby. I think she said it was from Bobby, I'm not sure if Bobby's with us today, but he asked a question. Karen, can you give us that question? Because it is a question that, and plus Jeff wants to know the answer.
I'm waiting.
Okay, let's have the question.
Okay, Rosemary, how do you turn your gift on and off?
Why did you want to know the answer to this question? I can understand other people, but Jeff's experience, 14 years you've had experience of me. I mean, come on, surely you know.
When I come down here to Florida to visit, I generally will come and do a small project or some little project.
He fixes things in my house. Fixed the toilet for me the other day.
And I'll take Rosemary to the supply place, and there'll be people all around. And when she walks in front of me, I always think,
It means the store's crowded with people.
Yeah, the store's crowded with people.
On this earth.
Right, exactly. And I wonder, when Rosemary walks into a crowd of people, how she turns off the visitors, the spirit from the spirit world that want to come in and connect with their family.
So my answer to this question is a question: why would I want to turn it off? And the answer is, I wouldn't. I don't ever think about turning it off. Here is the thing that puzzles me the most about those of you who can't see or don't have the gift or don't catch glimpses and so on. People say to me all the time, your life must be a bit crowded. Well, yes, it is. But it's a bit like when you go to a restaurant. You're focusing on the people who are at your table, but even the restaurant can be crowded as can be, but you rarely see other people at the table. They're there, you know that they're there and they're around, but they're nothing to do with you and what you're doing. And just occasionally somebody might get up from that table and come across and say hello. But mostly, you sort of, it's in the background. You're not shutting it off. It's just automatic that you're doing what you're doing, right? And, and you're focusing on that. But when people say to me, how do you deal with that then? That, they're there all the time, which they being those in the spirit world, they're there all the time, but very often they're in the background because they choose to be in the background. Nobody's, unless you're going to tap me on the shoulder. I don't want to invite anybody to do that, particularly right now at this moment. But unless you're going to tap me on the shoulder, I'm not necessarily going to notice you. You're just another person walking through the store. I will say, when you see 10 people in the store, I might see 30. I will say that. I mean, I do, I will see other people, but they're just going about their own business and they're not necessarily coming to talk to me. But I do wonder, and I look at you, all of you, and so I have a question for you, but it might be a rhetorical question, but I look at you, all of you who don't see, all of you who don't have that communication, all of you who have no sight or sense, and I wonder. It makes me sad because I think to myself, don't you get lonely? Don't you get worried? Aren't you lonely? I mean, people wonder at me because I spend a lot of time on my own. I mean, unless I have lots of visitors, I don't really get too many. You know what I mean? I spend, huge amounts of time, blocks of time by myself, but I'm never by myself because either Grey Eagle is here or I'm talking to my dad, or, you know, there's always someone for me to talk to. There's always someone for me to, you know, refer to. If I've told you all this before, if I'm cooking in the kitchen, which you know I love to do, you know, and say I'm cooking something that I don't particularly want to eat or want to taste, which sometimes happens, and I'll say, you know, is there enough salt in this? I'll ask Grey Eagle, is there enough salt in this? Or did you put enough sugar in there? Or what do you think? And he will tell me. So he tastes for me, which is great. So I look at you, you know, yes, my life is crowded. It's busy. And I love it that way. But I look at you, all of you who don't see and who don't have this gift. And it makes me very sad because I think to myself, you know, don't you get lonely sometimes? And you must, I mean, Jeff, you lost your son.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you truly have those times when you give anything just to see him or to sense him around you? And for all of us, you know, those of you who've lost your parents, or those of you, it doesn't matter, you know, those of you who have had a loss of someone who was good to you or close to you or meant a lot to you, you know, it saddens me that more people don't see and more people don't, you know, sense. So that's my answer to that. Al, do you have a question for us, darling?
Yes, so James actually asked a related question. He works with people in care in homes, and when they pass away, he says they kind of just come through at times. He has the same kind of question for himself. When can you open and close? He thinks he does it well, but then he says people just kind of come through randomly as well. So I guess it's related to what you were just saying, but particular to James and working in this environment with senior care.
Okay. Not sure what that question was. No, I'm not sure what the question was, but James, I'll do my best. What was the question, Al?
So he wants to know how he can basically better stay open or closed, or be affected or not affected by the things.
Got it. All right. Sorry. All right. Well, you know, this is not just for James. This is for anybody out there. This is for Jeff. This is for anybody. I suggest to people that you spend at least 10 minutes of every day. You sit in a chair quietly by yourself, and you say to those who are, you know, there and always with us, you know, this is your time. This is my time to sit with you. I don't want anything. I'm not asking you a question. I'm not looking for you to, you know, if you want to come and sit with me, great. But if you don't, I understand. But I'm spending this 10 minutes with you. And then you shut down your thoughts. You shut down your mind. You shut down everything but the fact that you are there for them. And then you listen and you look and you pay attention to what is around you. And at some point, if you do this on a regular basis, James, at some point you will see or sense or be aware. In those moments, thank you very much, by the way, for what you do, because caregiving is a tough job. And always being there for people and watching people pass, sometimes peacefully, but very often not so peacefully, is a tough job. So thank you for that, darling. But, you know, stay open. As I've told you, I close off. I wouldn't know how to, I don't think. And why would I want to anyway? But I suspect that the times you do sense and that you do see people around you, I'm suspecting that in those moments, those are the moments when you're not trying. Because sometimes you can try so hard that you put up a barrier. So the times when you are relaxed, the times when you are not trying, are the times when someone might come and tap you on the shoulder. And often I'm sure they'll come to you just to say, you know, can you let them, meaning their family, can you let them know I'm okay? It's hard in your situation because you can't go up to a patient, you can't go up to somebody who's just lost someone and say, hey, you know, I just saw them and they're okay. Can't do that. But what you can do is reassure the family in a gentle way by saying to them, you know, I'm sure they're with God, or I'm sure they're in a good place. And you can let them know in that way. So, okay, Carolyn, let's have our next question.
Lisa asks,
good morning, Lisa.
Do you believe that a soul will try to get messages to us through other people? I believe this happened to me yesterday, a message from my son.
Yes, absolutely, Lisa. Totally. And sometimes if someone in the spirit world, like your son, if he's trying and trying and trying and he just can't get through to you for whatever reason, it could be that you're distressed. It could be that you're emotional. And again, emotional situations will act as a barrier for those in the spirit world. Sometimes it's their emotions that act as a barrier, but very often they can, sometimes it's like you can talk to a stranger sometimes much easier than you can talk to a friend, right? You can, and so I'm sure that your son will do everything in his power to connect with you. And in fact, I do see a young man standing in front of me. Whether or not this is your son, I don't know. Greg will put his hand on my shoulder, so I'm going to go forward with this a little bit. And he's very, very, very excited. He's jumping up and down. He's jumping for joy, in fact, because finally, he's blowing you kisses. He's managed to get through. Of course, be skeptical, because it could be anybody. Be skeptical, but I'm just telling you what I'm seeing here. He has the most lovely, merry, sparkling eyes, very happy, sparkling eyes. And he would like to say there's some sort of celebration, a big celebration coming up very soon, Lisa. So I don't know if it's a birthday anniversary or something or another, but he's just blowing kisses, jumping for joy, and wants you to know that he loves you very, very much. And everybody out there, I don't give messages on this show, but I just did that. I always say, Jeff, I don't give messages, but I do sometimes. So there you have it, Lisa. I hope that helps you very much. And he's still here and he's still looking at me, but I'm not giving him another opportunity to say another thing because I think he said enough. I hope that helps, Lisa. Al, do we have another question?
Yes, Joe asks, if you're married here, do you stay married in heaven? And she used the example, is her husband waiting there in heaven? And she also says, what if you have two marriages when you're here on earth? Good
question. Why you should think that's funny, I don't know.
Going to be busy.
All right. Well, I've had it happen that I had a client once who came to see me, and she had been married twice, and she was concerned, which of her husbands was going to be there for her when she passed. And they both came through to talk to her, and they were actually, they didn't know each other before, but since the first husband was very protective of his wife and had hung around and made sure that the second guy she was going to marry was the right one, when he passed, the two guys got to know each other and they became quite good friends. And I was able to say to her, don't worry about it, because I think they're both going to be there to meet you and to bring you over. So I think, the question is that I'm pretty sure your husband's waiting for you and pretty sure he's going to be there. And if you get married again, that's going to be fine too. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. Jeff, would you like to tell us a little bit about, because everybody's looking at the cap and all that, would you like to tell us a little something about you? Anything. You can say no to me if you don't want to say. You can say no.
No.
Right then. Let's have our next question, Carolyn. Did you really mean that?
Can't think of anything right now. My mind went blank because the camera's on.
Okay. All right. Let me help you out then. I'll ask you a question. So we already decided, I think we already said that you met me, that Andrea and Jeff met me because you lost your son, right? So I know, just for anybody who is interested in Jeff, he's a very spiritual guy. You have a lot to do with the Native American community, right?
Yes, I do.
And he does sweats and so on. You do go into the sweat lodge. In fact, he's just built his own sweat lodge fairly recently, right?
Right, over the last few years. Yeah.
So, you know, do you tell us this? What is the benefit of it for you? What was the benefit of coming to see me, and what's the benefit of, you know, of your spiritual journey?
I think the listening to your description just about being able to get quiet for a period of time in my life, to be able to feel something of a spiritual nature, something that is not of the physical. I spent my life living for the physical, my job, my children, my wife, my place, you know, just it was all about the physical. And when Eric passed and we came to you and we got this immersion, and it's really, to me, what it was an immersion of the feeling and sensation of the truth that my son and other family members are on the other side, truly are there, opened up a huge opportunity for me. And these spiritual pursuits that I do now are times to get quiet and away from the physical. Even though we're doing a physical thing, because it's my body that's carrying me, I can take time to get quiet, and I can be surrounded with people who also want to be quiet. They want to quiet their bodies so that they can feel and see something.
And that's important to you.
It's
isn't
hugely important.
Why is it important to you?
Because it quiets the noise that's constantly in my mind. Again, it's about the physical life that I have. It helps me to feel more rested in my daily life. When I take that respite, like you described on the Facebook page, of taking 11 o'clock in the morning, or picking a time where you can just be quiet and say a prayer. It could be a Thanksgiving, it could be an asking, but just having that time to be quiet is it's a learned thing, and I'm learning that. And that journey really deeply began physically. For me to actually go and engage in it was after our visit with you. I had been dabbling and doing these kinds of things for a few years before, but until that experience, I really didn't understand the truth of what I could experience. And the truth was that the spirit world is alive and well, truly. And I didn't know that. I didn't really know that. And I believe it today with every fiber of my body.
I think a lot of people hope it, but
Sure.
Hoping it, wishing it, and knowing it is a very different thing, isn't it?
It's different than having faith.
Can you just briefly describe the difference between having faith
I know
and
it.
having knowing?
I know it is a truth today. I don't spend a lot of time hoping that it will be true. I know it's a truth. And my faith got me to that place where I could accept what information was coming at me, and how I was able to integrate that. My faith journey was important, that I didn't give up hope, because hope is huge for so many people. But today I know some things are true, and I get a great deal of comfort in that.
I think then it would be true to say that your son is the one who gave you that knowledge, that knowing, right? Would you say that?
Absolutely.
Can you briefly? I don't want to upset you.
No, it's okay. The emotions that I feel are good feelings. I recently wrote a small paper, and on that paper I wrote, an idea that I have is that his purpose coming was to teach me and my family more about love. And that's a way that I have been able to encapsulate our experience in the loss of our son, because the deep love that we had for him. Deep love sometimes can create some deep hurt, but it's not like a painful, abusive hurt. It's an emotion, and it's a feeling, and to me, it's joy. Can
you pinpoint? Because sometimes the difference between having faith and hope and having that knowing, it can be such a tiny thing. It can be a little tiny thing, or something somebody says or does or something, and and the light goes on, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden the light's on, and once it's on, you can't turn it off. Can you pinpoint that moment for us? I mean,
yes.
You may not be able to.
No, I can.
But all right, would you share it with us?
We were at Rosemary's.
Oh, it's my
place.
fault now then.
No, it's no blame. Absolutely no blame. It's a total gratitude and thank you. We got invited into her house where she lived in Vermont at the time, and
It's like the gum on the shoe I told you
yeah,
about.
it just can't get rid of it. Just can't get rid of it.
Go ahead, sorry.
And we were sitting on a very comfortable chair, and our son Eric came through, and a lot of other evidence of situations, but he was describing our house and events
through me.
through Rosemary. He was describing our house and our place and a construction project that I had was going on the house that he had actually been helping me with. And I had installed a window in the wrong location by 3 or 4 inches, and I was trying to blow it off like it would be okay.
And your wife had no clue.
And my wife had no clue at that time.
That the window was in the wrong place.
She was not thinking about that window for sure at the time. And Eric came through, and one of the evidence pieces that we heard from him was he, as if was looking directly at me through Rosemary, said, "You've got to move the window." Oops. And when I heard those words, I cried, and I still get choked up about it. Because I was carrying the idea that I was the only one that knew about that window. And that was only one small part of his long story that he shared with us.
And it was only a matter of 3 or 4 inches, right? And it was off center by 3 or 4 inches.
And he knew that. And it snapped. It was like a switch clicked, like you just said. It was like a switch clicked. And I knew that he was present. And that's not all that he had to say. It's a long story.
And telling on you.
It was beautiful.
Because Andrea had no idea.
Another friend says to me, "I'm only as sick as my secrets." So if I gotta just be honest, be truthful, and things go pretty darn good. I don't have to look over my shoulder.
And did you then move the window?
I went home and got my Sawzall and cut the hole out and moved the window. The actual glass had not been installed yet, but I had to make a change, and I did that. And I did that with a smile on my face.
And knowing that your son was watching every little move. That's the thing about the spirit world, I have to tell you. They know everything. They just, and they will tell secrets. If they think it's going to help you, they'll tell you secrets, not have any guilt about it whatsoever. All right, Carolyn, do we have another question? Thank you for that.
Nor.
Who?
Nor.
Okay.
Asks, in a crowd of people you don't know, how can you, Rosemary, tell who is of this physical world and who is deceased and in the spirit world?
Ooh.
What are the signs and symbols?
Good question. Well, I don't know really. I'm asking Grey Eagle this. Help me out here. There is something that speaks to the soul. There's something that speaks to my soul. It's sort of an acknowledgement of soul on soul to soul, which it's very hard to define, but I do know that, in a crowd of people, there is a difference in energy. Maybe it's a difference in energy. It's making me think now. This is a good question. No, I like this question. But there's some sort of a difference or a shift or something like that in energy. And so I just will automatically know. And that's the best. Sorry, I'd like to be more definite. But I'd like to say, well, they're floating or that they're, 2 feet off the ground or something. But that's not true at all. There's just some defining thing that separates this earth world from the world of spirit. It's just something that speaks to my soul, and I'm able to. My soul is able to acknowledge that. I do believe we have a question from Paul. I'd like to get that
real quick. Amber said, "Very cool, Jeff. It is very difficult to find others who understand this culture and spirituality."
Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Okay. Paul asks, I went to a workshop recently on the aura, and the speaker mentioned that there were 3 chakras above the crown chakra. Is that true? He has a 2-part question.
Okay. I've never seen a chakra above the aura, so I mean, I can't say it's not true, because if somebody else has had that experience, it's their experience, but it's not my experience. And the second part of the question is,
how many chakras are there? And if we have chakras in the aura, what are they and what do they do?
you see, a chakra, the word chakra is a Hindu word meaning spinning wheel. And a chakra is an energy, it's like a vortex. It's an energy point, and it spins and spins and spins, and it sort of draws in and draws and goes out, and pulls in and goes out like this, drawing in energy and expending energy all the time. We have in our body 7 main chakra points. We're going to start at the top, which is the crown chakra. We're going to go to the middle. A lot of people call this the third eye or the psychic eye or whatever it is you want to call it, but it's seated just behind the pineal gland right there. And the pineal gland secretes serotonin. And if you have a lot of serotonin in your body, it's supposed to activate that chakra point, that energy point right there. We also have the throat chakra. Most people have experienced the throat chakra because if you get upset, right, you get that, you know, that tightness in your throat, or your throat clogs up, and that's when that spinning wheel judders a bit. It sort of gets blocked, and it gets blocked from your emotions. So most people experience that. The heart chakra, I know that Jeff has experienced that. A lot of people have experienced that. I've personally experienced that. It's when it's almost as if something is so painful, it feels as if your heart is breaking. And that's when the chakra around the heart, or close to the heart, is, again, it's when the chakra stops spinning, or gets a little clogged up and needs a little bit of oil to keep it turning and moving. And that oil is the energy, the good energy and the positive energy that we put into it. We have the chakra, which is seated close to the solar plexus. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're at 4 at the minute. So we've got the solar plexus chakra. Most people have experienced butterflies in their tummy, nervousness, so on and so forth. And again, it's when that chakra point is, you know, for whatever reason, usually emotionally, it sort of stops or stutters and so on. So that's where that one lies. Then there is the one which is, as a student of mine once said, down in the forest. I'm going to leave you to figure it out for yourself. But it has to do with, you can obviously experience this particular chakra during physical or sexual things going on. It's a natural order of things. It's perfectly a natural order of things, but that's where that chakra seats itself. And then we have the base chakra, which is seated at the base of the spine. And this chakra is, if you do Kundalini yoga, this chakra is likened to the snake curled 3.5 times around the base of the spine. And as the snake slowly unfurls, it goes forward, touches each of the other chakras. The top chakra, the crown chakra, is likened to the 1,000-petal lotus flower. And this is why, Paul, I'm doubting that there are chakras in your aura, because when the 1,000-petal lotus flower, the crown chakra, starts to open up, as all your chakras begin to open up, it literally opens and opens and opens and opens and opens, and it just opens out like a beautiful flower and goes out into the, and creates its own beautiful energy, which is then out there in the universe. So I doubt very much if there are chakras in the aura. If someone can explain it to me and convince me of it, I'm always open to listen. And as we said earlier on, there are always new things to learn, and there's always new ways to grow. So good question. Thank you, Paul. All right, Al, another question.
So we have Melinda's on for the first time today. She didn't have a question, but
good morning, Belinda. Don't forget to subscribe. And
she also says this gentleman, which I think she's talking about, Jeff, is very lucky to have these experiences with you.
Absolutely.
Are you lucky?
Yes.
Do you consider yourself
fortunate.
lucky?
I consider myself fortunate. Luck follows the well-prepared.
Well, it's too. Oh my goodness! All these sayings are coming out. We are equally fortunate, I think, because, you know, it's nice to have Jeff and Andrea in my life. And I'm doing a dinner party for them on Saturday, so not decided quite yet what we're going to fix something else. Yeah, he's got to do some more work. Sorry, is there a question, Al?
So yes, Chelsea asked, when someone, and I dropped off, so if this was asked again, just let me know. When someone dies that did harm to you, do they have the ability to help or make amends?
Yes, they do. They do, you know. When we leave this earth, we all of us will be given opportunities to help, to make amends, to correct things, to help us, to guide us, and to steer us. Yes, I'm going to say yes to that question. I'm going to, before I forget, talk about the competition, because I know a lot of people are nervous about it and maybe not wanting to write their little essays because they think that the competition is maybe going to be too difficult for them. The competition is about 3 chairs. You tell a story in the first chair. It has to be the saddest story that you could possibly tell. You don't have to be a writer to do this. It can be as short as you like, or up to, I think we said 500 words, right? 500 or 600. We'll sort of stretch it, but try to keep it under 600 for us, please. You know, you tell that sad story. You then sit in the happy chair and you tell us a story which is going to, these stories have to touch us, basically. They have to make us, you know, sad for you, or they have to at least make us smile in the happy chair. The only thing is, it has to be the exact same story that you wrote in the sad chair. Then we move on to the third chair, which is the inspirational chair. And then you have to tell the same story all over again, but you need to inspire us or tell us how you were inspired. Each of the stories, each of the chairs has to touch us, even if it only makes us smile a little or makes us sad a little or what have you. We do need those stories. And I know, Jeff, that you did this, didn't you, as an exercise?
I did.
He's not going to win anything, just let me tell you. He can't win anything because you know, he's exempt by you know, the fact that we know that we know each other really well. But I think that you were intrigued by doing this, weren't you? This exercise.
What it did, you know, what it did was it reminded me of unpeeling an onion. We know what the whole story is, and I told that story. And as I was digging deeper to cut down on the number of words, which is difficult for me because I like to talk, as I was digging and digging and digging, I got down to the core of it, and it was very emotional, but very, very helpful, because I was absolutely able to then tell a story of humor and smile into it and offer that gift of healing in my last part of my story. And it was a really good tool. I highly recommend doing it. Even if you don't enter it, please enter it. It's important that you do for yourself and your family, probably. But it's a good exercise. It's a
very good tool, and it's a tool that I teach my students. And yes, it might be hard, and who wants to sit and write a story anyway, and who wants to tell the life? And sometimes we can only see the sadness of a situation, and this helps you to see not only the sadness, but it helps you to see that there is always a little bit of joy to be found in every little bit of sadness. Even if you're reminded, if you've lost a son, even if you're reminded, or a child, that you know, that child gave you something special, as well as the heartbreak of losing that child. You know, you sit in the happy chair, and you can actually, if you really work hard at it, you can remember, right, Al? Sorry, not Al. You can remember, Jeff, all the fabulous things that child gave to you prior to losing him.
Oh, yeah.
And then the inspiration that comes from that. You know, there's always a gift in any painful situation. There's always a gift if we look for it. And this exercise of the 3 chairs really does help us to, you know, to work on that gift. I know Carolyn's going to do it, aren't you, Carolyn? You're going to try and do this.
If I had any extra time, I would love to. I thought about it, and I thought, oh no, because I like to talk too. So I thought, no, I just have too much going on.
But in order to enter this competition, you have to subscribe, please. and it's very easy. You look at the subscribe button, you click on subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing to subscribe, and then you can enter the competition. And we need your entries in by March 22nd. So I think that's 2 weeks. You've got 2 more weeks. Is that something like that? 3 weeks. You've got 3 weeks. So get a move on. I gotta move it. I gotta move it. This is my grandson. He likes this song. I gotta move it. I can't remember what the movie is from. So some, jungle thing.
Movie, yeah.
Anyway, so get a move on, please. And really, I urge you, even if you don't want to join the competition, I urge you to try it for yourself, because honestly, it opens up a new way of thinking, and it really it can open up your world. It can make a huge difference to what you're going through. So, for your own sake, never mind the competition, for your own sake, try it if you can. And of course, we're going to have 3 winners, and those winners are going to get the opportunity to ask one question of me personally on a one-on-one basis, either through FaceTime or through Skype, or I suppose Messenger even. Anyway, we'll see how it works, but you get that opportunity to do that. And that's a very valuable opportunity. Would you say that, Jeff? Help me out here. 15 minutes or 20 minutes with me, maybe even longer, you never know. But anyway, Carolyn, do we have a question?
Well, Lisa wanted to comment. She said, yes, that's my son. He always appears to mediums that way, excited and jumping around with sparkling blue eyes. His birthday is in April. Many people coming to celebrate. Thank you, Rosemary and Greg Eagle.
Oh.
And
You are very welcome, darling. You're still here, by the way. Just to let you know. Hope he's not going to dog my footsteps all day. I've got shopping to do. I've got a dinner party to prepare. Sorry.
Presidia asked,
Presidia, good morning.
are you able to pick people from spirit world if they really want to give a message when we are watching a live show such as this?
Well, we just did that.
Right.
So that's your question answered then. Just to be clear, I actually don't pick people. Grey Eagle is here for a reason. He helps, he guides, he, helps us to do this stuff. So, he's sort of like the guardian at the gate. They can't come through to me unless they get through Grey Eagle. So, we have to thank Grey Eagle specifically for allowing people to come through. But yes, and we've done this before, Presidia, many times, even though I say we're not going to do it, we do it anyway, because sometimes I just can't help it. I don't know why I'm singing today. Okay. Al, do you have a question?
Adrian asks if
as long as you don't burst into song, we're good.
The movie is Madagascar. A few people commented
good.
on
Thank
that.
you. Right, one of my grandson's favorites. Yeah.
And Adrian asks, are there aliens or other planets that have life on them?
Oh, Adrian, I'm not an expert on aliens, but I would be foolish if I think anybody who denies the existence of life on other planets, I mean, you've got to be really foolish, right? Because, the universe and the many, many universes that are out there, I mean, how on earth do we know? So I'm open to the possibility. And if there's life on this earth, why wouldn't there be life on some other planet? What do you think, Jeff? You're not going to be foolish, are you?
In the solar system that we have now, they found bacteria on other planets.
See?
So there is some life.
Does that mean there's life?
There's some life.
When we think of bacteria, we think of those nasty little germs. It's like
good and bad, right?
So there you are. So I don't even, the word alien to me conjures up some green-eyed monster. How do we know that they don't look just like us? How do we know that they don't look even more beautiful than us? Because I actually think that the physical human form, even in an old man or an old woman, I think there's nothing more beautiful than the human form, personally. But who knows? But I would be a fool if I didn't say there's got to be somewhere, I would think, certainly a high possibility that there is life in other places other than our own little tiny grain of sand that we live on, which we call planet Earth. Carolyn.
Somebody had a question, and I'm waiting for them to get back.
Okay, so
how do you know that the dead can see us? That's A340, which I was asking them what their name is, but they haven't responded yet.
Well, we'll call, hi, A340. I'm going to leave that one. Well, I think, Jeff, you just answered it. Right? How do we know that the dead can see us? Well, if they can tell Jeff, which I think actually they're more likely said to Andrea, Jeff's wife, he didn't get that window put in right, Mum. So you need to get him to move it. I think he was telling on you. I think he was. I think you, and he was probably laughing while he was doing it as well.
For sure.
I mean, when I first, you've heard me say this a trillion times, when I first knew how much the spirit world could see and how clearly they can see us, I started using bubble bath in my bath water. Not that it makes a difference, because I'm sure they can see right through if they want to, but why would they be interested in, watching me have a bath? But the evidence that I personally have given to other people, the evidence that I know many mediums around the world have given to people, is proof. When you can say to someone, which I fairly recently did, someone who is halfway across the world, you don't know them, you've never met them before. And I know there are skeptics out there who think, well, I must have some detective going halfway across the world to see what somebody's doing or another. Well, I would be bankrupt if I did that, wouldn't you? But anyway, when you can say to them, your sister in the spirit world is saying, she's been watching you painting the front door of your house, and she doesn't like that particular color green. I mean, how am I supposed to know? I mean, and it's such a ridiculously unimportant piece of information, except to the brother, who now knows his sister not only sees him, she can tell him, change the color on that door because I don't like it. I mean, and that doesn't happen once, and it doesn't happen twice. And Carolyn's here often when we're having consults, and you see it all the time, don't you, Carolyn?
Yes, I
mean,
do.
I'm not putting words into your mouth there. And, Carolyn's husband's very skeptical about this sort of thing. And she goes home and tells him some of the things that have been said. We never talk about the person we're having the consult with, but some of the information is so blow away. It's like it just blows your mind.
Yes, I have to say something to him. Yes.
And so, so be skeptical if you want to be skeptical. But when you're living in it and it's a daily occurrence and you're seeing it all the time, I don't really care what people think. If you believe, you believe, and if you don't, you don't. And there's nothing I can do or say that's going to change your mind. And those people who call me and say, well, prove it to me. Oh, go away. Go away. I'm not going to prove anything. Why would I want to waste my time proving that to anyone? I know what I know, and I know what I believe. And so I know that the spirit world comes to us and they tell us all sorts of amazing, amazing things. And it, as much as I do it, and as much as I've been doing it for the last years, a lot of years, it still blows me away. I still get excited about it. I still think, wow, did they really say that? Wow, could they really see that? And I think that part of what makes me as good as I am, because I'm pretty good at what I do, otherwise I wouldn't do it. Part of what makes me that good is that I'm a very curious person, and I'm very enthusiastic and excited about the whole subject. And I think that makes a huge difference. Let's have another question. Carolyn.
James asked.
Good morning, James. We already did James.
We did.
James, is your second question. Go ahead.
It's right along this subject. Has your ability ever failed you? And did you ever worry that nothing would come through for a client?
Oh, there are lots of times. Well, actually, not too many. Thank
No, I
goodness.
was going to say, I don't recall lots
no.
of times.
Well, you know, over the years, there have been a few times.
Many years.
Over the many years. You know, people in Florida, they talk about the oldies, and I'm wondering when I'm going to be put in that category of the oldies. Oh, wait a minute, Carolyn already put me in that category. Usually, I mean, if something for whatever reason doesn't happen and I can't make a connection, I'll say to that person, you know, there are two choices here. I can give you money back because I'm not going to charge someone, even though they're not paying me for what I give them, they're paying me for my time. I still feel responsible enough that if I don't, you know, if I don't give you something, I'm not going to charge you. Or we'll keep doing this and we'll keep trying until we do it. And there's a story about a young woman who came to see me, who wanted to talk to her mother, desperately wanted to connect with her mother in the spirit world. And the first time she came, nothing. And the second time she came, nothing. And the third time, absolutely nothing. Complete and utter silence from the spirit world. And, you know, I would say to Craig, help, do something, help me. I mean, I was desperate for this poor young girl to talk to her mum. And she actually broke down when I said the third time, really, really sorry. I have no idea why, but, you know, I just can't see, I can't connect with her at all. But I said, let me make you a cup of tea. And she burst into tears. And I went into the kitchen and I made her a cup of tea. And we came and we sat, we chatted, and we were just chatting about, you know, I don't know. She was thanking me for all the times I'd tried, and if it's not going to happen, it's got no. And once the pressure was off her mother, that's what it was really. We're just sitting there chatting, having a cup of tea, and there she was. And once I'd connected with her, and when she was able to do it, she wouldn't stop talking, and that was brilliant. So, you know, sometimes there are reasons. Another time I remember a couple who'd been to me many, many times before, and they came, and this particular time it was a nothing at all. I couldn't see anything at all. And I said, I'm really very sorry, but, you know, I can't do anything for you today. I can't see anything. There's nothing there. And they were very disappointed because they'd always had great times with me before. And the next day or the day after, whenever it was, a couple of days at the least went by, and I got a phone call from this couple. Can we come and see you again? So I said, sure, absolutely. And they came to see me, and they said, we now know why you couldn't see anything. Our dad died yesterday. So they were meant to come after he'd died. And it was a very sudden, very unexpected. The father just got down, had a massive heart attack, and just died straight away. And luckily, you know, they sat down, and there was their dad, who had also been a client of mine and been to see me many times. It's like, you know, so, and he was raring to go. So, you know, I don't worry too much. It doesn't happen very often, but it will happen from time to time. There's always a reason why it happens. And yeah, okay. Al, do you have a question?
Just a time reminder, about 10 after. Do you want to take more questions? Or
Sure, yeah.
So I actually lost the question.
Okay, that's all right. Carolyn, do you have a question? It's good. We're going back and forth between the two of them, so let's have another question.
Roxana asked,
good morning, Roxana.
My mom passed away 3 weeks ago, and would you happen to have a message for her?
I was going to say no, because I don't do this actually, as if you've been paying attention, you know this, but in fact, Grey Eagle has put his hand on my shoulder, and apparently, Roxana, your mum died in very sad circumstances. I know they're always sad. What am I saying? Because they're always sad circumstances. But in this case, it seems to be particularly sad because, according to what Grey Eagle tells me, there's you know, some unfinished stuff going on. As I'm talking to Grey Eagle, I am catching a glimpse of a lady. I cannot tell you in this brief span of time that this is your mum, but I suspect it may well be. And I'm hearing her say, this is an odd message, I wish I had more time to do this. She tells me to tell you, Roxana, that she had help, or she has help. So whatever was going on in her life or your life as a family prior to her passing, I don't want you to worry, because I think your mom has a lot of help dealing with all of that stuff, and I think she's fine. If you understand that message, maybe you could let us know that you understand it, because it's a bit of a cryptic message, I have to say to you. But I hope it helps you, because I'm pretty sure she's safe and well. All right. So, so you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us all over the place. You can find us on Instagram and wherever else we are, and meet up and all of those things. I want to say thank you to Gregor always for being with us. I want to say thank you to Jeff. I want to say thank you to Carolyn and to Al. Jeff, do you want to say
just thank you?
Goodbye, wife a tear, baby
So
dear,
long.
from my eye. You know that one?
No, I don't.
It's an old wartime song. Shows you how old I am. I'm an oldie. Oh my God, I'm an oldie. Never thought I'd live to see the day.
I'm getting reports that the live feed disappeared.
Okay.
I'm not sure why. I still have you. And Kay just jumped on and she said good morning.
Morning, Kay.
Sorry,
Morning.
I missed you.
That's all right. You can rewind us. Do you want to say goodbye?
Just thank you all, and I'm really grateful to be here.
Well, thanks,
Have
Jeff.
a good day, folks.
Thank you very much for being with us. And until we meet next week, we are doing this again next week. Until we meet again, I'm going to try to refrain from singing, because it's a great song. Yeah, have you ever heard that? We'll meet again. Don't know where. Don't know when, and all of that stuff. And so until we meet next week, please, 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 all of you, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to join the competition. Please, please, please have a very, 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 very blessed day.